Welcome to our webinar today. I want to introduce the main features of the new MACSQuantify software 3.1 to you. Please acknowledge our disclaimer. We structured the webinar in the way that we first feature on the changes which apply to every user. So it's research use software features, but of course they also translate to the 21 CFR software. And we will start with news about the calibration. As you might already know, that there is a new type of beads. We call them advanced calibration beads. We will briefly introduce the performance QC and tracking tool. Then we talk about compensation. There are two new things here. One is a tool which can be used for recompensation of already acquired single stains. And there is also a new express mode, which is called compensation multicolor flex. And I will show you how to use both. So this is like every user might come in contact with this. Then we come a bit more into administrator regions. So we will talk a little bit about the user managements. There are some new roles and rights and also some different improvements here. We'll talk about the new express mode infrastructure and about the express mode manager that can be used to install, deinstall, deactivate, activate express modes on the device and also in the software version. And the last section is just additional small features and improvement. The last section of the talk will focus on features which are unique for the 21 CFR Part 11 software version. And there are three new ones: a new disaster recovery and the audit trail, which is now tracking way more things than it did before. Yeah, and I would say we just directly jump into the first topic, which is the advanced calibration beads. And as I already said, this is a new product. This is the SAP number. And these are the beads which are per default used. As soon as you have software 3.1, these are your reference particles for PMT calibration and also for initial calibration. They consist of 6 different bead populations. We have blank beads. They are quite big and they are used to set the scatter. Then we have dim beads, so they have a dim fluorescent signal in all of the channels of your machine. Then we have beads of intermediate size and also brightness. And this is a mix of single stains, and they will be used to set the gains of the fluorescent channels during the PMT calibration. And there are also very bright beads. These are very small, and they also give a signal in all the fluorescent channels. And currently they are only used during the initial calibration, not during the daily calibration. And this might look familiar to those of you that also work with the Taito. So the Taito also has calibration beads with these different subpopulations, but this is a different product. Yeah, so it's not the same as on the Taito. How to use the beads is very easy. It's exactly the same process as with the old calibration beads. You just vortex your bottle and you put the drop and then you scan the bottle and then the whole process is running automatically. It's just that now the readout looks slightly different. So you see, instead of the 2 populations we had before, now in the scatter you see 4 different populations. And then, of course, also in the plots for the single channels, you see the different populations. In the background, there are also some smaller changes. So one is, especially for the MACSQuant 10, the pass-fail criteria are now a bit more stringent, which means we have now higher quality standard, if you want. And on the MACSQuant 16, there was also a change, and there was a minor adjustment for the targets. This means in practice that if you set the gain to 400, the brightness behind it is not exactly the same as before. And this also is why when you have a MACSQuant 16 and you update from an older to a newer software version, you should definitely check your instrument settings and, if necessary, adjust them a little bit after the update is through. All right. Another thing which is which you know, so there is a way to manually start the PMT calibration process, and this is still possible with the new beads. The only thing is If you then go to express mode setup, you now choose calibration advanced beats to tell the machine that you used a new type of calibration. In the past, when you started the calibration manually, the mode was just calibration. And another small detail which is different, which I think is very nice, is that now when you start the process manually, you can now choose which bead lot you are using. There will be a library, so whenever you scan a new bead lot, they will be selectable here from a drop-down menu. And this is pretty nice because in the past, the system was just assuming that you use the same type of beads that you did in the last PMT calibration. And now you can tell the machine which lot you are using. Since this list gets longer every time you scan a new bottle, there is a way to clean up, and this can be done by MACSQuant admin users. So you need this access right, but then here, this admin user, they can delete the not used bead lots from the machine so that the list is not getting longer and longer. And this is already it for the first section. Next topic of the webinar is the Performance QC and Tracking tool. This is a new tool, a new feature of the MACSQuantify software 3.1. And it was implemented because maybe you know that some users, they kept manually track of the changes of the device over time. And for those people, we now have a tool which is doing this automatically. So the use case here is that you can track and monitor the parameters that come out of a PMT calibration over time. And this is only on the machine, not on the PC, because we are tracking the parameters here. Readout looks something like this, and the system applies a set of mathematical criteria, which we call Westgard rules, to identify if there is a systematic error or some fluctuations. And basically what you want is that your parameter stays stable over time, and you have this green box in the middle. This is plus minus 1 standard deviation. And if you have like an outlier, you might know maybe something happened here, or you can also see if the machine is trending and let's say the CV is getting worse and worse over time, something like this. You could identify here. This tool needs a minimum of 7 PMT calibration as a baseline. This is because it needs this as a background information because it is setting those thresholds, those boundaries automatically. And every time you do a PMT calibration, the newest information is automatically added to this tool. And even if you delete the original data file after you did it, the information is still stored inside this tool, which is very nice. I want to show you briefly how to access it. If you have the right access right, this is will come in the user management. You will see this icon here on the main screen in the upper right corner. And when you click this, you will see this window opening, and there are 3 different tabs. There is time, chart, and report. And as the name says, time is the point where you can define the time range for which you want to see the parameters. You can either manually select them, or you can also click one of these buttons, which are last month, or I want to see the last 6 months, or everything which is available, or after the last service, because every time, of course, the colleagues from the field service, they do something on the optics, they will enter it in the software, and then you need again 7 calibrations to stabilize again. Okay, so here you define your time window. Then you click on charts, which is the second tab, and here you can now select the parameters you want to see in the report section. You can open these are drop-down menus, and you can choose, for example, I want to see the stain index or the CV, and then you can click on the channels that you want to see, and then you click on this add chart button so that they are placed in the report. Here you can also suspend or reactivate values. This is, for example, you have one outlier and you know something was wrong there. Maybe you didn't warm up or something was weird here. Then you can say, hey, don't regard this parameter. This is what suspend basically means. And in the reporting section, There you will see all the reports that you have added to the tool for the time frame that you chose in the Times tab. Per default, it shows you the CV and the stain index for V1, B1, R1, so one color per laser. And now it depends on which software version you have. If you have 21 CFR Part 11, you can click this Export to PDF button. If you don't have this, if you are a research user, you can only export this then to CSV file. Yeah, but this is how the tool looks like. Let's continue with the next topic, which is compensating spillover. As I said, there are two new tools. One is the recompensation tool, which you can access under Tools, recompensation tool, as the name says. The use case of this tool is that you can calculate compensations after acquisition. So you have already measured your single stains, and afterwards you want to use the single stains to calculate the comp. And there are actually two use cases. One is you have a complete panel of single stains. You are 8 colors, you have 5 colors, whatever you are doing. And it's just afterwards you take those single stains and you calculate the full panel, the compensation for the full panel. The benefit here is that you have also the option to manually adjust gates, which is pretty cool. I will show you in a second. The second use case of this tool is that you can also modify existing compensations. So you have your instrument setting, maybe there is a tandem die in your panel, and maybe you just want to replace one tandem die or one die which went wrong or something like this. So you can, instead of calculating the whole panel again, you just replace 1 or 2 or 3 dies from your panel. The prerequisite for this to work is that all the single stains you want to use in the tool, they must have been acquired with the same instrument setting. Otherwise, this is not working. And for use case 1, I have a full panel. I acquired all the data files, and now I want to do it afterwards. You go to the tool, so Tools, Recompensation tool, and then you need to load the data files into the sample list if they are not there yet. So File, Open Data File, and you select all the single stains you want to use. And then you need to apply the instrument setting of the data files in your sample list. And the easiest way, I think, is you do a right-click, Apply Instrument Setting to one of the files. Or you can also click here on Load Instrument Setting, and then you can navigate to the instrument setting that should be used. And then here you can now assign the data files to the different channels, and you can do so by clicking Select, and then there will be a drop-down menu. So you can choose from the files which are in your sample list, and you assign them all one by one to their target channels. All the single stains. If you have a viability die and you want to have a one-way compensation, here you just say, okay, this is a B3 viability, maybe it's PI, and you just click on viability, but don't select a data file. Yeah, you just leave this open and just click viability. And then comes the point which is interesting. You can here now click on this checkbox for show gating. If you choose this, then you have later the chance to adjust the gates for the positive and for the negative populations. Yeah, and then you just click on this calculate button after you made all of your selections. And what you then see first is a page where you can adjust the region of interest for all of your samples. So if you have 4 samples, you will see 4 plots, 1 per sample. It will already preset a region of interest, but you have the chance to adjust and modify it for each of the samples. And then you say calculate. And if your show gating was selected, you come now to this point. And here for each of the data files, you can now move the gates for the positive and the negative population. And after you made your adjustments, if you had to do any, you can click on Done to finish. And then it will give you the normal readout that you see the comp matrix, and you can save this now as a new instrument setting. This is your first use case. The second use case is that you just want to replace one or more single stains, but not calculate the whole panel, for example, because you just want to exchange the tandem dyes that you have. So here, of course, you need to load the data files into your sample list, and you also need to open the instrument setting that you want to use. Of course, needs to be the same for all of the samples you are using. And then you can assign just those additional or just those files you want to change to the channels. And again, you have the show gating options. You are free to use it or not. And now the command that you have to click is add to current. If you click calculate, it only calculates the compensation for those two files. Add to current means it uses the instrument setting you already have. Maybe it's an 8-color compensation, and it just replaces those two files. And then again, you can review and adjust the scatter gates. And if you click the show gating, you can move the gates around if you want. And in the end, you get your readout, and you can save this as instrument setting and then use it for the future. Summary, very quickly, the tool, as I said, you really use it after acquisition, post-acquisition. The first use case is you want to calculate it for a complete panel. There you use calculate button. The second use case, you click add to current if you just want to replace single files for your compensation. And show gating applies for both processes, so it's the same functionality in both. Let's look at the new compensation express mode. This is it's an additional express mode. So the old compensation multicolor express mode is still present on the machine. This is now just a new option that you have to use, especially when you want to use cells and beads within one compensation at the same time. Some colors you use cells, some colors you use beads. For these purpose instances, which we sometimes have in our life, we now have a new express mode, which is called compensation multicolor flex. This setup is exactly the same as for the old compensation express mode. So you need to select your rack and mark the positions and group it, and then you assign the which color is where. But just here you choose compensation multicolor flex instead. Another difference is that it will always measure the full uptake volume. So usually if you use the old express mode, there is this prompt for the region of interest after 5,000 events. And it will also go to the next data file whenever it reaches the number of events. But here now it will always measure the whole volume that you program. And the gates are set after acquisition. And the cool thing here is that you can individually assign the region of interest for each sample. So this is how it looks. And this is now compensation where we have beads and also we have cells. And after the compensation is over, again, the gates are preset, but you can now modify them. So it really recognizes the beads and the cells separately. Of course, you have to make sure that your instrument setting, your scatter setting, and your trigger allow you to see both the cells and the beads at the same time. Yeah, if you trigger out the beads, then this will not work. But then after you did it, you just say you assigned the region of interest, you can just say calculate, and then you get to your result. And then you can, like with the old compensation express mode, you can now look at the plots for all stainings or the spectral plots, or just save the instrument setting and then use it for the future. I think this is a great addition to the old compensation multicolor express mode. Let's look at the user management next. It looks very similar to older software versions, but there are a few new predefined user rights and also user roles. Let's look at the roles first. This is new, EM super user. If you assign this role to one person, they directly get access to all the express modes which are on the machine. This also means that per default, not everybody has access to even to those included express modes. Okay, so normally users don't have access and you need to grant them access. I'll show you later. There are also new roles which are for, let's say, the future use with Miltenyi software solutions. They are not for your standard use on the normal machines, I would say. So this QC analyzer, QC user, and system automation. And for details, please have a look at the user manual. I want to show you this long list of rights, which has now also expanded, so it's more granular. You have rights for the disaster recovery. This is a 21 CFR only feature. You can very individually assign which person has access to which express mode. You have rights for the person that is doing the management of the express mode package, so administrative rights for activating, deactivating, installing packages. And this is also the right we discussed previously, the right to access the QC performance QC and tracking tool. So all of this is now individual, and of course you can select all rights, or you just look into it and then you can really go into the detail who has access where. Quality control is also one for the future software solution. Let's just look at the new express mode rights. So we just open the whole list. And what I just want to tell you, this is quite important to know. If you have MACSQuant custom user role, this custom user role assigned, this is not giving you access to the included express modes. It only gives you access to PMT calibration and compensation. So those pink marked rights every custom user role has. If you want your custom user to also be able to run, let's say, the 8-color express mode, you need to give them the right individually. The MQ Express also can only do PMT calibration per default. But as we said, a user management admin role, these people, they can assign specifically who has access where, and they can also create new user roles summing up certain rights, and then you can assign them to your users. I would say let's look at the Express Mode Manager next. There is a new infrastructure in this software version, and we separate between setup express modes that every user can do, like calibration. Then we have the included express modes. Here now the admin needs to give access to the users if they want to have access, and this is like immunophenotyping, MACSPlex, stuff like this. And then we have the add-on packages. And the brand new thing here is that you can now install multiple packages at the same time. This is a great improvement. You can install them at the same time, and then the admin can choose who has access where. And how it looks like, this Express Mode Manager. Of course, you need the right to access there. Only MQ admin can do this per default. Here you can activate or deactivate express modes. You can also update them from a USB, for example, and choose them to be added and activated. There are some which you cannot deactivate, and these are marked here as core package. They are the ones like calibration. So those cannot be deleted from the machine, fortunately. With the others, you can deactivate them. There are 2 steps. I would always just deactivate in express mode. Deactivate means it cannot be used anymore, but it is still on the machine. If you remove something, it's gone from the machine. So you would have to install it again from a USB. And the small features and improvements, I don't want to hide them from you. The second screen can now be set up again very nicely. So the duplicate screen works. You can extend the screen. You can do all of this under options default when you are MACSQuant administrator. And you can select where the main window goes or where everything is displayed. Another thing I really love is that when you want to modify your automatic file naming in the path, here you now have these things you can click, and then the parameters will be added. So this really removes the problem that sometimes people try to add parameters and then they put in typos. There is additionally a syntax check. So if you try to type something in and maybe you type 3 times the percentage, the system, it will turn it red and will tell you, hey, this is weird. This is not something which is allowed. This is super cool, I think. And another smaller thing you have here, if you are a user which can do both, save your data into your MQD files into public and private, here you can choose what is the default when you log in. I would say this is a bit of a minor change. The red-green color blindness option is back. You can find it again under options because this is something every user can do. So under options, software, adjust for red-green color blindness, and then it swaps from the standard to this modified view. The copy dialog has a great change. So you can now sort the columns again, for example, by time of acquisition or by file type. This is amazing. And it also applies to the open dialog. When you do file open, you can also do it there. And another new thing which is great is if you copy files that the date modified matches the date of the acquisition. In the older software versions, you had this, if you copy data files, they get all the same timestamp from when they were copied. So this is great improvement, smaller but amazing. This is still the same. Please always eject your USB sticks after you copied something. There is now a pop-up coming which confirms that it's now safe to remove. So this is the new feature here. So please always wait for this pop-up before you take out the USB. Another small detail is there is now a print to PDF button here under File, Print to PDF. If you want to create a PDF, in the past you go via print and then you need to select the PDF writer. It's a nice thing as well here. So there is a new handling of special characters. So you cannot even type them in anymore into the project or sample ID or description. There is also a pop-up message when you want to load older files which still contain special characters, and then they are transferred from something which is forbidden into something which is allowed in the software. This is also nice. FCS export per default 3.1 is pre-selected, and this is also compatible with most software versions. Just if you use Flojo version 10 or lower, we would recommend 3.1 compatible. Let's look at 21 CFR. It's not so many slides to go, but it is really cool. So there is a new, we call it disaster recovery feature. And basically what this does is it gives you the chance to really create a full backup of the whole machine. So in case something goes horribly wrong, you can then get it back and recover like the whole everything. Like it's like the full backup. You need to have the right access right there. So only for MACSQuant admin or for users which have the right. And this is the 21 CFR only feature. You can access it here, File Disaster Recovery, and then it creates this folder, which can then be also, after the disaster happened, can be used to restore your system. And this is described very nicely in the manual. But it's really everything. It's not just the data file, but also the user accounts, the settings, basically everything. The audit trail also has been greatly improved. So it's just now tracking way more things, especially when it comes to gating. So when you make adjustments to the plots, and even if it's just moving it like 1 pixel to the left, but also like what regions are shown, normalization, even color of the gate, I think is tracked. Yes, it is. So basically everything of this will create an entry in the audit trail upon saving it, or when you make an analysis report. So these are some example entries, so you can see that the template was modified. You can also say it here that you activate it in the analysis report. So under options default, gate tracking, this is new. You can tick on this checkbox. So this is written into the analysis reports if the gate was changed. Audit, these are just examples of the audit trail, how it looks on the device itself, and also in the FCS, the PDF export. you see it really tells you like the gate was moved from position to position, polygon was modified, rectangle was removed. So all of this is now tracked. Another thing which is now correctly tracked is when you use express modes. This is also another great improvement. So you can see it on the device, also here in the PDF export, when the express mode was started, what the data file was. It's now correctly logged whenever you do that. Smaller additional compliance features. If you want to start a PMT calibration, it will check the expiration date of the beads. And if it's expired, the user has to specifically say, yes, I want to continue anyways. This is then also tracked, yeah, that the beads, so the date and the lot are tracked. So you can see if you used expired beads. And then was one small thing, which I think also applies to the research user, is whenever you see bead lot number and it has this little underscore M, this means that the calibration was started manually. If you create an analysis report, you know you can give this, or you need to select a signature reason, and then here this comment, it now requires at least 5 characters. So you have to write something in, otherwise the OK button is grayed out. This is something you have to know. So you need to put some comment in. And with this, we would be at the end of the presentation. Thanks for joining and hope to see you soon.